again. We are in part 3 of chapter 7. This is part 3, meaning that I've had to split chapter 7 up because it's such a long chapter. So, and the information in here is so heavy that I don't want to miss anything. I don't want you to miss anything. I don't want to rush through it. So this chapter 7, is called a capital offense, and a capital offense basically is a charge that is punishable by the death penalty. So we're looking at this in depth because Hophni and Phinehas, their capital offense, their charge was that they treated the Lord's offerings with contempt. And so we're looking at that, and one of the things I mentioned in the last video in part 2 about the Lord's offerings is that it's possible that we're doing the same thing today simply because we don't understand these offerings, because it is not being taught to us. Mostly what we're being taught is that those offerings don't apply today because Jesus died for us, and that's partly true. Jesus did die for us, so we don't have to sacrifice animal sacrifices anymore. But these sacrifices still apply. These offerings, still apply. And so it was important, like back then they were going through the motions, so they were just doing it and not even realizing there was nothing, their heart wasn't even in it. They wasn't even realizing the significance of what they were doing. And so today it's important that we understand what these offerings really mean beyond the killing the animals. We don't have to do that. Jesus did that. He took care of that part for us. He died for us. He was the animal sacrifice. But these burnt offerings and these guilt offerings and the peace offerings, and it's like 5 different offerings. We're going to look at those. So the first one is the burnt offering. We're going to look at that now. This is the reading of Iron Sharpens Iron, chapter 7, part 3, which is the burnt offering. And this is what it says. It says, unlike the other offerings, the burnt offering was completely consumed in the fire. This was a complete sacrifice to the Lord, representing our giving of our all to God, withholding nothing. At Leviticus chapter 1 verse 9, we're told that this offering provided a pleasing aroma to the Lord. Today, this offering is given unto the Lord when we vow to withhold nothing from the Lord in our praise and worship. Jesus taught us how to give our burnt offerings to the Lord when he told us to love the Lord our God with our whole heart, whole mind, and whole soul. In doing so, we are withholding nothing from the Lord. See Mark chapter 12, verse 30. If I was able to include music in this book, I would do so right here. There's an example, a perfect example of the offering up of the burnt offering. If it was a song, would be William McDowell's Withholding Nothing. I surrender all to you. Everything I give to you. Withholding nothing. I don't need to be singing, y'all. Withholding nothing. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. I don't need to be singing. But I encourage you to go to YouTube and pull up William McDowell, Withholding Nothing. That is the perfect example of a burnt offering. Okay. I'll be back with the next one. Hey, I needed to come back real quick before we get started with the next chapter. There was something that I failed to mention about the burnt offering, which is a whole offering where we withhold nothing from the Lord. What I failed to mention is this. Um, with the different festivals that the Lord instituted, one of the things that was mentioned was that we are not supposed to come empty handed before the Lord. Now, King Jesus paid the debt for us. He was that animal sacrifice for us. He shed his blood for us. So no, we don't do any more animal sacrifices. But that does not mean that we now have nothing to bring to the Lord. Back then, when they were coming before the Lord, they were bringing their animals, and they were bringing different offerings, grain offerings and different things. They were bringing this stuff, but they were just going through the motions. So now that we don't have to do the animal sacrifices, does that mean that when you come before the Lord, you come empty handed? Really? It has been misconceived that that's what the tithes is. You bringing your tithes and your offerings, but listen, God owns everything. Your money is not good. Your money is no good to God. He owns everything. The dollar bill these are promissory notes that we exchange between one another. When you do a burnt offering, and mind you, we're not to come empty handed. Think about this. In the garden, when Cain and Abel was bringing their offerings to the Lord, Abel brought a sheep, right? He brought the best of the lamb, but Cain was not a shepherd. Cain grew, he was a gardener. He grew food, so he brought some of the fruit from the ground. So he still came with an offering, right? But the issue was the heart. It was the heart. Where Abel gave the best that he had, Cain brought some of what he had. So when you come into the places where you need to worship, and you come in with your offerings, your money, your tithe, because everybody's big on the 10% now. We're going to, they had this big old issue about the 10%, so big on the 10%, but you're coming and you're bringing your offering. But what's going on with this heart? You bring in your offering like God needs your offering. He owns it all. The cattle on 1,000 hills is his. He owns everything. He sustains it. Look. There's nothing on this earth that God needs. Okay? He sustains. He's the one. We need him. He doesn't need us. But here's the deal. Ask this question. What do you give somebody that owns it all? What could they possibly want? Your heart, your mind, your soul, your thoughts, you. That is the burnt offering, where nothing is withheld. You're giving this this offering in its entirety to God. We don't have to bring animals. Jesus paid that debt for us. So what do we bring as a burnt offering? Ourselves, all of us. I surrender. I surrender to you, Lord. I give you all of me. I withhold nothing. Everything about me, Lord. If there's anything in me that you do not approve of, take it out of me. Get it away from me. Take it away from me. I surrender. I surrender. I surrender. I'm yours. Have your way with me. These are the things. This is a burnt offering. That's a burnt offering. So I wanted to make sure that I shared that, because I kind of missed that. And that part is not in the book either. All right.